90% of Americans feel unprepared by their sex ed, according to a new survey. 1,500 Americans between the ages of 18 and 44 were surveyed, and 90% of them felt that their sex ed hadn't prepared them for real-world experiences. And this sex ed gap is affecting people in all sorts of important ways. Firstly, the basics of how bodies work. So 38% of women said that they felt unprepared for changes in their menstrual cycle, and a third said the same thing about fertility and conception and birth and postpartum. A quarter of the men surveyed said that they felt like their sex ed didn't prepare them enough about unplanned pregnancy, and 21% said the same thing about sexually transmitted infections. Secondly, the basics of how to talk about sex. 41% of those surveyed said that they felt unprepared for communication with sexual partners. And a shocker of a stat, 40% of respondents hadn't learned anything formally about consent. Interestingly, something that men learned more about than women is pleasure. So half of men surveyed said they learned about pleasure in their sex ed classes, and only 32% of women said the same. Now, we don't have any intel on what kinds of pleasure they were learning about, but we're not certain that it was about how to please or even about the female pleasure organ itself. If you want to fill your sex ed gap, you can think about kicking things off with our book, The Organ Education Forgot. It's a little book about the clitoris, and you can find it at the link in our bio or at sexandspace.com/book. But back to the survey. If Americans have such big gaps in their sex ed, where are they going to for information? So the primary source of information for Gen Z and millennial respondents is online. Nearly a third mentioned friends, and a quarter mentioned porn and social media. And when people were asked what source of information has the biggest impact on their view of sex and relationships, equal numbers of people said porn as they did their formal sex ed classes. That's not good. That's kind of like watching the Fast and Furious and using that to learn how to drive. Now, there is a better way to learn. If you want to fill your sex ed gaps, follow us at Sex and Space or check out some of our podcasts at the link in our bio. Or you can find it at sexandspace.com/podcast. We chat with people from all different walks of life and all different areas of expertise, so there's something for everyone, whether you want to learn about porn, sex work, or tips for having a satisfying sex life. And let us know in the comments what your sex ed was like wherever you're from. Or let us know if there's something that you'd like to learn.